Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. It's Adam Ratliff with Adam So Fun, and today I have my great guest. We have Janice with us again from Electric Quilt, and today she's going to be showing us around BlockBase Plus. I have to be honest, I have it. I have imported the blocks into EQ, but I have done nothing in BlockBase except for in the last 10 minutes I opened it so I could say I opened it. So if you haven't seen the last video, it is a preview of Electric Quilt EQ8, most people call it. It will be linked below, but Janice took us on a very fun tour of what EQ8 can do, and we do have a discount code for you. It's ASF10 as always, and that is going to be good until May 10th. So if you want anything on the electricquilt.com, feel free to go shop. I will put my affiliate link below, but you don't have to use that, but I would love if you use it. Thank you. Just because this question is going to come up, classes are not included in that discount. Classes are never discounted. But they do have classes in-house and everything, so make sure you check them out. If I was closer, I would be in a full week course clicking my mouse away. So Janice, a quick introduction. Even though you had to do this once, let's do it again.
Yeah, I'm Janice Frisch. I work in product development and marketing at Electric Quilt. So you might get me in a chat or a phone call at some point. And if you send in a feature request or something, I'm the one that you're going to hear back from. I've been quilting for over 20 years, and I'm a quilt historian by training, so I have a PhD in folklore, and my research was on European influences in early American quilting. So BlockBase is actually near and dear to my heart for a number of reasons that I'll get to in just a minute.
Oh, that's awesome. I didn't even think about that being, these are all historic blocks. So, yeah, let's jump into it.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, well, first thing I want to talk about is that BlockBase Plus is actually the companion software to Barbara Brackman's Encyclopedia of Piece Quilt Patterns, which I brought with me in case you didn't have a copy.
It is
so this book is a nice thick book, has over 4,000 blocks in it, and they're arranged by major seam lines. So Barbara Brackman's a quilt historian. She has an active blog right now, so if you just Google her, you'll find her, and she has crazy amounts of information, literal decades worth of research. She started out with the question of well, what's the original name for any given block? And so she started compiling blocks and the names associated with them. And what she quickly discovered is there is no specific name for a block. It's often very regional or idiosyncratic, but you can kind of categorize blocks by the major seam lines in a way that you can kind of catalog and figure out what they are. So every single block in here has what's called a Brackman number, and quilt historians use that to reference a block design, because if you just go, oh, it's an Ohio Star, or oh, it's broken dishes, that actually could mean a number of different blocks. So by using the Brackman number, we all know precisely what we're talking about. Designers have this on their desk because you can flip through it and you can get all sorts of inspiration just looking at the blocks. And we've got better pictures of the inside of this on our website, so go check them out there. They'll be on my little pictures here. But she also, if you have historic quilts, and this is why I really love this book, she's got a logic system built into the book where you can look at your quilt and answer questions about where the seam lines are, and it can help you find the block itself and what it was called and when they were originally published. So there's lots of different ways to use this, and there's an index in the back too, so if you are oh, I want something related to water, then you can find all the water blocks. So there's a number of different ways to get inspiration out of this. So this is super duper handy, but as you saw from the pictures, everything in there is little teeny tiny. There are no patterns. It doesn't tell you how to make any of these. And you would have to draft them yourselves. And that can be kind of tricky, getting the proportions and everything right. So Electric Quilt put together BlockBase Plus, which is all over the 4,000 blocks in the book, pre-designed for you, and it's printing software, so you can print what you need at any particular size. So let me hop in, share my screen, and I'm going to give you a tour of what precisely that means.
While you bring this up, I was looking through the book. I'm ashamed to say I don't have it. I definitely need to add it to my whatever, my book collection.
Yeah.
we are quilters. This would be a fantastic coffee table book. And
Yes.
especially at night when you're sitting watching TV and you just like have like a little bit of inspiration. It's so easy to flip through. So I'm going to have to get one.
Yeah, it's really fun to flip through and just kind of find a block and be like, ooh, what would that look like combined with this block over here? Or you can just, it's limitless in the kinds of ideas that it can prompt. So we're looking at BlockBase Plus right now, and the first time you open it up, you're going to get this little splash screen here, which is a quick tour of the software. I will just kind of reiterate what I'm going to go through, and if you never want to see it again, there's a Don't Show Again button, or you can have it pop up every time. So, but once you close it, it's gone, and you can get back to it over in the Help button with the Getting Started on Screen tour. So BlockBase Plus, as I said, it's all of the blocks in Barbara Brackman's encyclopedia, and it's block printing software. So there are no design capabilities within BlockBase Plus, but as Adam mentioned, you can connect BlockBase Plus to your EQ8 and use all 4,000 blocks in EQ8 as well. And people always ask, like, are they the same blocks that are already in EQ8? Because EQ8 has over 6,000. And there's a little bit of overlap, but it's probably less than 150 blocks, and it's the really common ones like the 9 patch and a square and those kinds of things. So if you have both, you've got like 10,000 pre-drawn blocks at your fingertips.
And when you add, when you install BlockBase, it automatically installs Yeah,
it automatically connects to your EQ8. So long as you open BlockBase Plus up once, then EQ8 can see it. So you have to open it so that EQ8 knows that it's there.
For those of you who are computer not great, it does it for you.
Yes. So. and if you have any trouble at all, we are here to help. But yes, they pretty much appear automatically in there. So when you open up BlockBase, there's 3 sections of the screen here. Over here is the library, which is kind of similar to the library tree in EQ8. This up here is the block viewer, and this down here is the note card. And so this is set up, it matches all of the chapters and categories and subcategories in the book. So if you have the book, you can literally grab the category and subcategory and just jump through. And clicking on this will show you all of the blocks that are there. Below the viewer is the note card. And here's where I was talking about that like Brackman ID number. So here's the ID number. Here's the size we drew the block at. Here's your category and subcategory as they appear in the book. And then there's some characteristics of the category so you understand why things are sorted into a specific section. Over here we have published names. So any name that was published that Barbara Brackman found that is associated with this block is listed here, along with where that publication was found so that you know what source it came from. So this is known as a glorified 9 patch or an improved 9 patch, depending on which source you found. And if you click on the printed names, you actually get additional details on the sources themselves. So this came out of a specific quilt book and those kinds of things. So that's fun. This is also adjustable, so you can see more or less blocks, or if you've got a really long piece, you can pull it all the way up there. Across the top of the screen, we've got our control panel up here. So like in EQ8, you can turn patch lines on and off if you want to see what this might look like sewn without artificial black lines, or if you want to see where the patches are so you know how it's constructed. You also can flip through and look at how they're laid out, which is fun because sometimes like the difference between a block is just in the way it was colored. So when you add grayscale in, it's like, oh, okay, I can see this one. It's the same color on all sides and this one's divided up. But if you're looking at it otherwise, it's like, well, that's the same block. Or you can add color back in. And then you can control how big the pictures are as well. So if you want to see more or less blocks, these let you do that. And then there's help over here, which always takes you to our website directly to get assistance further.
It's amazing how different they look. Sorry. It's amazing how different they look when you take the patch lines out.
Yes. Yeah, it's because it's like your brain is like, oh, okay, this is what it'll look like when it's actually sewn. So it's really, that's a really critical tool that we include in all of our different programs. There's also multiple ways. Oh, sorry. You can see the quilts in the blocks in 7 different quilt layouts. So let me grab this one. So like I said, this is printing software, not design software. So You can't create your own quilts within this software, but you can do that in EQ8. But if you only have this software and you kind of want to get a sense of what a quilt might look like made out of this block, that's what this is for. So there's 7 different layouts. There's horizontal with sashing, if you've put them on points, on point if you're alternating them with unpieced squares. And this one, you've got columns where the blocks are offset from each other. And this is a horizontal strip with the blocks on point, and then kind of a fun modern style quilt as well, so you can kind of see what it might look like just on its own if you're playing with the block at different sizes. So those are just to kind of get your juices flowing and see different ways of things, and you can replicate these in EQ8 fairly easily if you want to. It doesn't port them over for you, but it does let you see what they might look like there.
That is the serendipity of BlockBase.
Yes, it is the serendipity of BlockBase. It's really fun because you can try all different blocks and just instantly get a sense of what they might look like in different layouts.
It's a rabbit hole, people.
Yes, it is. It's really fun, especially if you get some of those asymmetrical blocks going, or complex blocks going, and seeing the interplay between the blocks in the different layouts. So up here, we also have a little bit of controls over the trees. Okay, so over here, we have a really detailed way of searching the program. So there's actually 4 different searches built in. So the first one is by Brackman number. And so that's if you know the number. So if you're talking to a quilt historian and they're throwing out numbers at you, you can search by the number and it will come up and you will get all of the information associated with that particular block. So this is a really fun block that I just picked a random number, honestly.
Did you really? I was just going to ask, like, have you made this? Because it's such a unique block.
Nope. I picked a random number. Unfortunately, there was one associated with it. Because they're not always, she left room to add blocks. So they're not always you can type in a number and not get something.
Okay.
There's also a published name search. So if you're looking for a block that has a specific name, there's 2 ways to do that. You can actually scroll down here, and this has every single published name that's in the program. So you can just click on one and find them. Or if you know what you're looking for specifically, like Ohio Star, because I'm in Ohio and I love that block, you can click on that. And it's going to bring up every block that has Ohio Star in the name. So here's this one was called Ohio Star in Captors Weekly. This one's known as Ohio Star Everywhere. This was known as Ohio Star and Aunt Kate's Quilting Bee. And this is searching both Ohio and Star together. So if I take Star out and just search Ohio, you're going to see additional blocks. We've got our 4 Ohio Stars, but then we got State of Ohio, Ohio Beauty. So you can make the search as close together or as wide-ranging as you want. There's also a category search. And this lets you kind of narrow down based on how you, if you're looking for a theme, if you want to put together something specific. So you can tag things by skill level if you want something that's easier to put together, or if you want something that's going to have lots of Y seams, click advanced. If you're looking for blocks from a specific time period, so 1930s replica quilts are always really popular. There's different design categories and different themes. So maybe you want your quilt to have like a bird theme. When you click search, that's going to bring up 28 blocks. You'll see it brings up some penguins, so that's a very clear bird. But the other blocks don't necessarily depict birds, but if you look at them, the names of the blocks are bird themes. So this one's a hen and chicks. This one's got crow. So Flight of the Swallows, birds in the air. So you'll get blocks that are themed by name as well as by what they're depicting. And you can see up here precisely what it is you searched. So if you're trying to figure out how to narrow or increase the search, that information is saved up there for you too.
It's interesting. Penguin blocks are back from the 30s.
Yeah, I think it's fun. I want to make this one.
It's I'm kind of shocked.
Yeah, there's a bunch of really fun animals from the 1930s collection within this. So there's some really, really interesting options from there. People were into, you had the cutesy little prints from the 1930s, and people were into that in the design as well. So source is our last search option, and this lists all of the sources that are listed down here. So if we're trying to find what appeared in a specific publication, this will let you see that. So Aunt Kate's Quilting Bee, which I mentioned earlier, has 88 blocks that are shown. You've got a scroll bar over here. So you can go down and keep seeing what was published in that specific publication over time. So there are lots of ways to find what you're looking for in the program. There's also a favorites tab, which is this little heart guy up here. I've preloaded this with some favorite blocks, but you can see they're all showing up in there. If I'm on the main tab and I find something that I like, let's just pick something randomly. I can select it. I can click this add to favorites button and you'll see that little heart appear in the corner, which means it's in your favorites list. So you'll always know if this is something you've saved or not. And if you decide later, I actually don't like that one very much, you can just remove it from the favorites. In the favorites tab, we've got some additional capabilities. So print favorites is going to let you print a contact sheet, and there are a number of different options on how to print that contact sheet. With the options we've currently got selected, you can zoom in on the print preview here. And you'll see it just gives you a printout of all of the blocks. It shows their Brackman ID number so you can find them quickly. And this one, we've opted to have the size at which we drew the blocks so you know approximately how big they are at their default drawing size. And we can close that.
Does that default drawing size have anything to do in this program? Or is it so when you use the block?
Yeah, when you go to print, there's a default option, or you can print it at any size. Okay. But the default printing size is often helpful. So like this block was drawn as a 10 by 10. Well, you can see it's technically divided into 5 sections. So each of these are at default 2-inch sections. Mm-hmm. But if I make this a 12 by 12, it's going to have an odd number. So looking at the default size can sometimes help you figure out, like, can I make this a 7-inch block easily, or is that going to make my cuts really weird? Or do I need to have it as a factor of whatever the drawing size was? So that's why we keep those default block sizes in there, because sometimes it helps you figure out a way to scale it up or down it works in an easier manner in terms of actual sewing. So that's what those are for. The other thing I want to point out, because you mentioned you can get these into EQ8, there's an export your favorites for EQ, and I'll show you where to see this in EQ8 later. But when you click this, it grabs everything that's in your favorites and it creates an additional category in the library in EQ8. So if you can kind of collect all the blocks that you specifically want to make for a project, export them as a favorites, and then they're all in one spot for you to quickly grab instead of having to go through the library in EQ. So that's kind of a handy little shortcut there. Okay. All right. So now that we've found some blocks we want to make, I'm going to switch back to that favorites category. Let's look at the different printing options that come with BlockBase Plus, because that's what this is for. This is a block printing software. So the key feature is that you can print blocks at any size, and there's 4 printing options. So just like in EQ, you can print a picture of the block, you can print a foundation pattern, you can print templates, and you can print a rotary cutting chart. So this guy, we'll take a look at him and look at the print block category. So here's that default block size, but you can also change it to any custom size that you want. And you can print it with the colors, you can have the label included, and when we take a look at the preview, you can see it's just a picture of the block. So this is really helpful if you're like working on a project, kind of create a cover page of the block that you're using over and over again. Other fun things you can do with this, if you change that custom block size, let's say to like 1 inch, and that's going to change height automatically because there's an aspect ratio lock here. And switch into an outline drawing and click preview. Now we've got a coloring page. So now you can try a bunch of different colors on your own and figure out what combination you might like. So this is if you don't have EQ8. In EQ8, obviously, you can play with the colors there. BlockBase doesn't let you do that, but you can print it out. Also, this makes really fun wrapping paper. Or you've got kids coming over to hang out, or your own kids or grandkids, and they need a coloring activity. Boom, there you go. So you can do lots of fun stuff with this as well. Next option that we have is foundation printing. And this is going to look very similar to printing in EQ8, but remember BlockBase Plus is a newer program than EQ8, so it's got some printing features that EQ8 doesn't have. And I want to be clear that installing BlockBase Plus doesn't add those features to EQ8. They exist only in BlockBase Plus. It will add the blocks to EQ8, but not the features. The printing features are just in here. So if you want the advanced features and you're using a block, you might want to pop in here to do the printing. So in the printing the foundation, you can change your sections. So right now this is auto section, but you could clear sections and create your own if you don't like how the program's suggesting you put it together. Piecing order is which section you should do first. And again, you can change the order. And numbering is how you're going to sew that foundation block together. So A1 goes down first, A2, A3, A4, A5, A6. And again, you can change the numbers and it's going to dynamically update. So if I want to work this way, you saw it all suddenly switched from there. In the print options here, again, you've got the sizes, you can print the numbering, you can have units all together or separate. That's similar to EQ8. You can adjust the seam allowance. And in the preview section, this actually looks a lot different from EQ. You now have a full free rotation. And if you hold down the control key, it will rotate in set increments. And then you can slide these around again, just so they fit better on the paper. And you can actually add pages if you want, just by sliding off to the sides or down. So that's a really fun element that you could do there.
EQ also doesn't have the EQ doesn't have the block reference up in the top either, does it?
I think you can. I don't think it has the section reference.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has this. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would have to double check that. But yeah, I think the section references are new. So, and you also just saw I copied and pasted, so you can actually like create multiple versions of this, like copy and paste each section a couple of times and then print out a few blocks on one page. So that's new up here, the copy and your paste option. And if you made a mistake, you don't want that there, there's a delete option as well. We can also save as PDF directly from this. So clicking and save as PDF, it's going to auto name it with the Brackman ID number and put it in your My BlockBase Plus PDFs folder. You can see some I've named in the past, specifically that it's a block or a foundation or the rotary cutting chart there. So you don't have to change the printer. You can just directly save as a PDF from the print preview. And just like EQ8, it's not going to remember any edits you've made the next time you go to print the block. So saving the PDF is the most efficient way to set it up just once and then leave it the way you want it to be. Because otherwise it's going to return to the default print layout. Okay, so the next item we have is templates. So let's use this little block for that. And templates, you can do no seam allowance if you're working with English paper piecing and you want templates for the actual paper part, or you can add the seam allowance. You can adjust the seam allowance bigger. Again, if you're doing English paper piecing, you want something a little wider than a 1/2 inch to work with, you can make it bigger here. So that's really fun. Some new options. There's an option to print unique templates only, and we'll take a look at what that looks like. So that's just one of each shape.
Okay.
So you know specifically what the shapes are. And we also have added an ability to have a scale square. So this is a 1 inch square that you can turn on and off. So you can make sure that things are printing out at accurate scale. And that's a new feature here as well. And then you can also print all the templates, and that is going to give you every single template needed to make this block. And then again, you can move things around and save your paper. So, and copy and paste as well. So those again are up here. I can copy it, I can paste it, I can get extra squares or any piece. So you can get multiple blocks going from there. And then let's take a look at the rotary cutting chart, which has some really fun additions to it. So we've got our standard size, seam allowance, rounding, which is something that you'll see in EQ8 that just makes things an easier cutting dimension. But here we have a detailed and a summary view. And we also have the ability to change how many blocks we want the cutting chart for. And you're usable with the fabric. So are you working with a fat quarter? Are you working with full yardage? You can adjust how many inches this is right here. And then when we go to the detailed view and we zoom in, we're going to get some fun information. So here's the finished size of the block and our seam allowance. And then it's saying it's calculating for the 8 blocks using this 42 inches that I put in there. So looking at this, just like in EQ8, this is telling you to cut a strip that's 1.5 inches wide and then subdivide it into 5.5-inch strips, which is going to create these log cabin designs around the outside of the block. Here's the new information. Because we gave it with the fabric and the number of blocks we're making, it's calculating that I'm going to need to cut 5 1.5-inch strips and then to get that subcut for 32 patches. So now I don't have to guess how many strips I need. So this is adding that in for you. This one again, it's 1.5-inch blocks. It's saying you're going to need 32 patches to make 8 of these. Here's your subcut in a square and then subcut in quarter triangles, subcut in a half square triangle. But again, it's telling you exactly how many you need. And the 64 patches here is 64 triangles. So each of the, like cutting a square and then cutting it in half is going to get you 2 of those 64. So that's really fun and super helpful new addition.
9 will have that.
Possibly. We're listening to which features people like the best.
That's amazing. I mean, and the fact that you said, like, you know, if there's something that you want to print, but you don't have the options in EQ, you know, if I'm using this block, which is something that a lot of, or this block's in a lot of quilts, so just to come over here and say, okay, I need 8 blocks for that quilt.
Yeah, and then it'll do that. It'll tell you how many strips to cut. And then subcut from there. So yes, it's gonna, you can't change the coloring around, so keep that in mind, but it will tell you how many of each piece you're going to need.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah, so that's a big change there that's people have really enjoyed when they've been using it. One other thing that BlockBase Plus does that is brand new is in its export tab. So exporting a block, we'll pick this guy. You can export pictures of the blocks just as like JPEGs and PNGs. That's not new, but what is new is you can export as an SVG file, which is something lots and lots of people have asked us for. So SVG, there's a resolution. Check our website. We've got recommended resolutions depending on which cutter you're using, because some want 72 and some want 96. We did a lot of work to figure out which one's which, and there's a help page on that. You can choose to either export a block image, and that with or without the patch lines, showing the fill. So that lets you create things like vinyl to put on mugs or on t-shirts or anything. You get the full shape of the block. Or you can export them as templates, and you can, just like with the template options, export just the unique ones or export all the templates, and you can adjust the seam allowances and whether it's mirrored or not. And that way you can run them through your digital cutters, and if you're doing English paper piecing, you could have it no seam allowance and it'll cut the paper pieces for you. Or if you're doing, if you're doing regular piecing, you can add the seam allowance and it'll cut them out with the seam allowance, and you can just go sew them together. So when you click export here, it's going to name the file as an SVG, and it puts it in my BlockBase Plus, the images folder. And again, you can add more detail to this, and then you can open those SVG files in like your Cricut or your Silhouette or anything else that reads SVG and use those. So that's one of the biggest additions to the program. And again, it's just the blocks that are in BlockBase Plus that can do that.
Can you add, so say like you did a quilt layout or you looked at the layout tab, you can't export those, correct? It's just the single block?
Yeah, just a single block. Yeah, the quilt layout is just a preview. There's no printing of this or way to select this as a means to print out, but you can then go into EQ and quickly recreate these. These are fairly simple layouts that EQ, they were all built in EQ8 and brought in here. So that's the kind of tour of BlockBase Plus. Let me show you where to find the blocks in EQ8.
This is, I'm so glad we did this just for my own benefit, but for those of you watching, they have ProStitcher Designer. You can export those SVG files, open them with Designer, and do different, like set your layouts and things so you can see it before you send it over to your cutter. Also, when you, for those of you who have Designer, you can export those blocks as a JPEG, open them in Designer and digitize your quilting around that. So you have that block and you're able to kind of pre-design your quilting when your quilt is done.
Yeah, and I will say, so while EQ8 doesn't export SVG directly, we do have a help page on our website on how to optimize a PDF to be able to convert it to an SVG. Because things like Inkscape, you can open the PDF and then save it as an SVG. So it takes a couple extra steps, but you can get SVGs from EQ8 exports. And we have detailed steps on how to do that on our website as well. So it's not a hard no if you're designed it in EQ8. It's just a few extra steps at the moment. So, all right, can you see EQ8 now?
I can see EQ8.
Okay, so to find the blocks from BlockBase Plus in EQ8, we're going to click on the libraries, and we're going to go to the block library, which we looked at in the previous video. And you're going to open up to EQ8 libraries is probably where you're going to be starting. And all of the add-ons are always at the end. So you'll see the BlockBase Plus is here. And clicking on things, you'll see the little pluses appear. So if there isn't a plus, just click on it and the little plus will appear. When you open that up, you're going to see the same categories and subcategories as exist in BlockBase Plus. So if you know where to find it in BlockBase Plus, it's in the same location in EQ8. But remember that we exported those favorites. So they're all the way down here at the end. There's a BlockBase Plus favorites. And when you expand that and click My Favorites 1, you're going to see all those favorites. And anytime you export it, this is going to update so you can change it in BlockBase. Like if you're like, oh shoot, I added a new one, it's not going to automatically appear here until you re-export again. But that lets you control which blocks specifically are showing up in this section. So they're very easy to use. You just grab them and you add them to your sketchbook just like anything else. And then you can go to your quilt work table and you can start designing with them. So they're very easy to go from one to the other and create your own things. And then play with symmetry and come up with other designs.
Oh my gosh, that's cool.
So I'm going to stop sharing. So that's our tour of BlockBase Plus. Because it's block printing software, that's kind of a complete tour of BlockBase Plus, whereas EQ8's always got tons more features that we haven't even talked about. But they do work together really, really well, or if you just want access to those blocks, they both are standalone and will work independently of each other.
That's awesome. Okay, I've been taking notes because I haven't used it. Most of them are like, go to the website, go to the blog, go to help because everything's there. That's one thing about EQ is that you have a ton of help.
Yes.
So it's something
it's free. It's out there and it's free.
So, but you can still buy classes, okay?
You can if you want a guided experience.
When you were looking at the BlockBase, you had those other sections. I just wanted to point out the other like add-ons. You can add on more blocks to your EQ if you go to, where is it in the shopping part?
There's under the shop, there's an add blocks section.
I have the kaleidoscope set.
Yes.
So there are other sets you can get to add more blocks to your EQ. Don't forget you can use those, the discount code, the 25% off work. The blocks because these are all from Barbara's book, they're historic. Are they copyrighted? Say somebody wants to start writing patterns. Can they use any blocks in EQ or in BlockBase in their patterns?
So everything that comes in EQ8, base EQ8 is copyright free.
Okay.
Some of the add-ons are not copyright free. So you need to check on our website. There's a detailed copyright page that will tell you this collection that's an add-on is copyrighted by so-and-so. So you need to contact them for XYZ. Most of the blocks in Barbara Brackman's book are going to fall under public domain. But there are some blocks that are published from like the 1970s, and that becomes a bit of a gray area.
Okay.
So there's again more details on our website about what specifically is and isn't, but a good chunk of them are not copyrighted.
Okay.
Predominantly, they're not copyrighted.
I say a lot of them are, like Ohio Star. Like you can't really.
Yeah. They're ubiquitous folk designs, or they were published in like 1890, and that's very clearly in the public domain at this point. So a lot of them, and you can just check in BlockBase. That's the great part, is it's got those publication dates. So you can just click down and see what the publication date attached to it is, and then know if it's something you need to investigate further. A lot of those publications are also long out of print. So there is no one to contact.
Yeah.
So
check if you're going to write patterns using any of those. Yes. We're going to say from 70 on, just check it, because you can go to the detailed copyright page on electricquilt.com.
Yes. And I will also say, because some of those blocks are older blocks, keep in mind that they were originally designed to be hand stitched. And so some of them, you might want to bring them into EQ8 and add a couple seam lines just to save your sanity. Because some of them are not easy to sew as originally drawn. And some of those historic blocks, I think, also were drawn for the publication, but no one ever actually sewed them. Okay. So there's a few of those in there as well. And there are a lot of one patch designs, and those are included in BlockBase Plus so that you have all of them, but they're going to play a little weird in EQ8 because they're designed as motifs rather than like all the hexagons and that kind of thing. Okay. Like you can use them, but they're going to set into a block space and stretch the hexagons a little bit. So they're mostly included for completion purposes, so that you can see them, but they'll play a little bit weird in EQ8. It's like the first three categories. Okay.
It was, like I said, I opened it up and I was clicking through, and just the 3 minutes or 5 minutes that I spent, it was like, okay, so here's 4 patches with a 4 patch, 4 patches with a checkerboard, 4 patches without, and there was a few things. I like when you said search for an advanced block if you love a Y seam, go to EQ and then you can add those seam lines and cover.
Yep, and you can get rid of that Y seam.
That's a great tip. Anything else we need to know before?
I don't think specifically with BlockBase Plus. I mean, keep in mind you've got that extra rotary cutting information for the blocks that are in BlockBase. You've got the SVG export for the blocks that are in BlockBase, and a workaround in EQ8 that is detailed out on the blog. So you can save yourself a little bit of cutting, and if hands don't want to work with rotary cuttings and that kind of thing. And those digital cutters are getting really good now with the rotary cutting options. So
if you use the SVGs, you brought that up, does it export very similar to, like, say you did the not unique, so it gave every piece? Does it export very similar to the templates?
Yes, it tiles them together much tighter because it's not based on a page restriction. And it doesn't include like the little preview piece. It will include, you can include the 1-inch scale square on or off, which is useful because different cutting software brings things in differently. So sometimes you have to rescale it once it's into the software that you're using. And that's based on the proprietary software and not something we could control on our end. But you can use that scale square to double check stuff.
Awesome. Janice, thank you so much for
You're welcome.
this VIP tour of BlockBase Plus. Because, like I said, this got me very excited. You know, I have been getting messages from people who have EQ, and we're like, I watched the video and I'm excited to go back and use it. I haven't used it in a while, or I have the books and I just never gave the time. So this is BlockBase for me. You know, it's brand new. I only got it in February, but still, just the stuff that this is doing, it's going to be fun. And I love that I can print out multiple blocks at once for those.
Yes.
Instruction.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I do want to reiterate again, like if you have our software and you've never used it and you don't know where to get started, you can reach out to us. We have a resource page that's like all of our lesson kind of collected into one spot so that you can kind of jump around and go from thing to thing, because information is spread all over our website. There's tons and tons of it, but we're also here to help. So like, please reach out to us. We want you to use it. We want you to enjoy it. And we want to help you figure out how to do the things you want to do in it.
Awesome. Well, Janice, thank you so much. Thank you to Electric Quilt for joining my channel. Don't forget, you can use my code ASF10 until May 10th. Midnight, May 10th Eastern, for those of you on the East or West Coast. And you can save 25% off of everything except for classes. And is there anything else I need to say? I don't know. Who knows? You know, at the end of the day, it's just quilting. We want to have a good time. So go out there, get your programs, make your quilts. Don't forget to share them. Tag Electric Quilt.
Yes.
Sharing anything that you made so they can see it. I would tag me. I want to see it so then I can repost it. Like, I love what you guys go out and do. So thank you so much. And everybody, go out and quilt. We'll see you in the next one.
Happy quilting.